Discover the inspiring story of a surprising airport mix-up. She transformed her life by accident. Ella Thompson rushed through O'Hare International Airport, her heart racing with the urgency of her day. Crowds surged around her, each person consumed by their own destination, but for Ella, it was about making her next connection before the clock ran out. As a waitress juggling late shifts and early mornings, this layover felt like another cruel twist in her already chaotic life. Bills piled up at home, and her father's health was worsening. And there was Mia, her bright-eyed daughter, who deserved more than Ella could give. The weight of her responsibilities clung to her like a dark cloud. In her frenzy, Ella's hand brushed against the smooth surface of a briefcase, and before she knew it, she had mistakenly grabbed a case that wasn't hers. It belonged to Jessica Larson, a corporate attorney deep in discussion on her phone about a critical merger. Jessica, swept away by her own world of high stakes, didn't notice her missing briefcase until it was too late. Later that evening, when Ella finally slipped into the comfort of her dimly lit apartment, she opened the briefcase out of sheer curiosity. A suffocating disbelief washed over her as she sifted through documents hinting at corporate fraud, evidence that could bring down one of the city's most powerful firms. The contrast between her life and this world was stark. Ella had never envisioned stepping into the shoes of a corporate player. Yet here she was, holding secrets that could challenge the very structures that oppressed her daily struggle. Suddenly, she faced a moral dilemma. Returning the briefcase seemed like the obvious choice, but did she have the courage to send all this information spiraling back into the hands of the very forces she had been forced to fight against in her own life? The thought of losing her job and putting her family's already fragile stability at risk loomed large. The possibility of justice hung tantalizingly close, but it was intertwined with threats against the lives she loved. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into agonizing weeks as Ella sat on the precipice of a life-altering decision. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her. She could feel the whispers of courage urging her forward, yet each time she pictured handing those documents over to someone who could utilize them, fear clawed at her thoughts. What if her father's health took another turn? What if Mia went without necessities? Her heart ached with claustrophobia, tightening around the decisions she had to make, the lives she had to protect. Just when Ella thought the depths of her turmoil couldn't possibly deepen, she received a text message meant for Jessica, a frantic plea about the briefcase, insinuating the grave implications of its contents. Panic washed over Ella like icy water. If she kept the briefcase, she risked her family's security. But the thought of returning it was like facing a wall of overwhelming corporate greed that had always overshadowed her own reality. Would she risk everything, or succumb to fear? The clock ticked ominously in the background as she frantically considered her next move. Will she stand for justice, even as everything she holds dear hangs in the balance? The path ahead blurred, tension crackling in the air, leaving her desperate, teetering on the edge of chaos. Ella lay in bed, wide awake, her mind racing through the implications of keeping the briefcase. The shadows of the room loomed over her, reflecting the darkness creeping into her thoughts. She envisioned the delicate balance of her family's life, the bills, her father's health, Mia's laughter dimming in the face of hardship. Each pulse of her heart resounded with doubt and fear, taunting her with the choice she had to make. What exactly did she want from her life? The question echoed, mixing with her fears and her longing for something more than survival. Somewhere deep inside, a flicker of anger ignited. These documents could bring down people who wielded power like a weapon, inflicting pain without remorse. Yet, pursuing that path felt selfish, a risk that could ultimately unravel everything she had fought for. As dawn broke, Ella struggled to make sense of her thoughts. She knew instinctively that keeping the briefcase this evidence could feel like holding a torch against the shadows of her life. With newfound resolve, she turned to her laptop, feeling the chilling weight of the situation dissipate slightly. She researched whistleblower protections, seeking information that could help her navigate this treacherous terrain both with caution and conviction. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Would anyone even believe her? Hours passed, consumed by the flickering glow of the screen and the relentless crunch of what-ifs. She stumbled upon online forums filled with stories of courage whistleblowers revealing truths to dangerous corporations, people like her who fought against systematized oppression. A sense of empowerment surged within her. If they could stand against corruption, why couldn't she? Yet as she read, she felt another layer of fear. These individuals had become targets, scrutinized and hunted. They had sacrificed their careers, relationships, their very safety. The tales of loss loomed large, a reminder that the stakes weren't merely abstract concepts, they were visceral and real. As night crawled in again, the briefcase sat ominously in the corner of her living room, a haunting reminder of the weight it carried. Ella took a deep breath and decided, she could keep this information close, where it could alter her life, her family's life, or risk losing everything by acting on it. Did justice, whatever the cost, really matter if it meant jeopardizing her child? Switching gears, she pulled out her phone and sent a text to the number from the frantic message. Do you have a moment? We need to talk. Her fingers shook, each letter a step into the unknown. She had crossed a line, pushing herself into a confrontation she never anticipated. The seconds dragged into eternity, as if the universe itself held its breath. Would she gather the strength to stand against a system that had always felt so immovable? As she stared at the screen, awaiting a response, Ella felt a pang of realization, a truth far removed from the shadows of despair. The actions she was starting to take ignited something in her spirit, rekindling hope she thought was lost under the weight of life's burdens. Then, her phone buzzed, cutting through her thoughts like a knife. The reply was swift, terse. Meet me at the usual place. Bring the briefcase. Breathe, Ella. This was the moment of truth. No turning back now. What awaited her at this meeting? Challenges she hadn't envisioned? Would she finally find a path towards justice, or would the consequences shatter everything she was trying to protect? Ella stared at the screen for a long moment after reading the message, the weight of what she was about to do settling heavily in her chest. She had crossed the mental threshold into uncharted territory, leaving behind her old life as a timid observer. This felt like roaring water, pulling her along with relentless force. She had to prepare herself. Gathering herself, she walked over to the briefcase, its presence almost hypnotic in its allure and danger. She unlatched it, peeling it open with cautious hands. Inside, chaos mingled with clarity, documents that held the keys to hidden truths, outlines of corruption implicated in her world. For a fleeting moment, the possibility of empowerment came flooding back, an exhilarating sensation that crashed through her doubt. But then, reality crept back. The sharp edges of her fears cut through her excitement. She envisioned the consequences, the impact on Mia, the look in her father's eyes if he knew what she was about to undertake. This was not merely a matter of bringing justice to light, it was a gamble with her family's security, a tightrope walk above an abyss that could swallow her whole. Despite the anxiety coursing through her, something primal urged Ella to act. The deeper questions were morphing with urgency. Who was she becoming? A woman willing to challenge the dark labyrinth of power? Or a mother poised to protect the fragile string of life she had woven over years? As she prepared for the meeting, she felt an unexpected surge of determination mixed with fear. Ella practiced what she would say, searching for the right words that would articulate her transformation. She couldn't go in unarmed, she needed clarity, a direct confrontation that could propel her into action or make her retreat back into the safe yet stagnant shadows. Pulling on a jacket, she stood in front of the mirror, questioning the reflection. It was the same person she had always seen, yet this time there was an ember of resolve flickering in her eyes. She felt the once muted layers of her identity coalescing into something fiercer, a woman who would not just survive, but seek to dismantle the corruption that had seeped into her life, even if that meant risking everything. Ella took a breath, grounding herself in this newfound strength, and headed out. The world outside her front door seemed more vivid, colors sharper, sounds clearer. Each step toward the meeting echoed louder in her ears, the anticipation charging her with an energy she hadn't felt for a long time. Arriving at the designated spot, an old cafe nestled between towering skyscrapers, she glanced around cautiously. Her heart raced as different faces passed her by, some familiar, others strangers. She could feel the weight of the briefcase against her hip, a constant reminder of the responsibility that lay within. The bell above the cafe door chimed, sending a jolt through her. She spotted a figure sitting at a corner table, anxiously shifting in their seat. It was Tom, a former colleague with a knack for gathering inside information. He caught her gaze and motioned her over, his expression a mix of unease and resolve that mirrored her own. "Thanks for coming," he said, as Ella slid into the seat opposite him, the briefcase between them. "Breathe." This moment had the potential to redefine everything. Would it be a step toward liberation, or the beginning of a devastating fall? Tom leaned in and lowered his voice. "You have the documents? We can make this work, but we need to be careful. The stakes are higher than you realize." His eyes bore into hers, earnest but filled with fear. The finality of his words settled heavily in the air between them. Ella felt the weight of the decision she faced pressing down once more. The moment had arrived, there was no turning back. What secrets would unfold in this confrontation? Would she uncover the power hidden in her own resilience or spiral into a web of danger she couldn't escape? As uncertainty hung in the air, one truth became unmistakable: this was just the beginning of a fight that would test her very limits. Ella could feel the urgency thrumming between them like a live wire. She opened the briefcase, its contents spilling secrets onto the table, a mix of documents, timelines, and names that had haunted her thoughts for weeks. The papers fluttered slightly in the stillness, a chaotic dance that mirrored her own internal struggle. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Tom's voice cut through her thoughts, sharp with concern. She met his gaze, and in that moment, she realized he held her potential future in his hands. "We could share this with the authorities, but you need to be ready for the fallout." With a deep breath, she straightened her spine, feeling the weight of the decisions that loomed ahead. "I can't just sit and let this continue. People are suffering because of it." The words came out with a fierceness that surprised even her. It was rare for her to feel so empowered, yet here she was, facing the catalyst of her transformation. Tom nodded slowly, a shadow of doubt still lingering. "Okay, then we need a plan. We can't just go in blind. We'll need to protect ourselves." As he spoke, Ella's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. What if someone found out her involvement? What if Mia got hurt? Yet, staying silent felt more dangerous than facing the unknown. "I know what I'm risking," she replied, voice calm but resolute. "I'll do whatever it takes." The fire within her had ignited, and each heartbeat felt like a countdown to action. She could feel the familiar stirrings of dread, but now they were mixed with the thrill of embarking on a mission for truth. Memories of endless nights spent worrying about her family's safety blended with visions of the truth finally being exposed. The stakes were personal, they were emotional. This was about freedom, her own and that of others. As Tom walked her through the logistics of their plan, Ella's confidence grew, revealing depths of strategy she hadn't known resided in her. The details came together: the database access, the right contacts, and how to gather further evidence while ensuring she would remain incognito. This was the type of adrenaline rush she had craved, the type of purpose she yearned for. In that moment, she discovered something remarkable about herself: she was capable of orchestrating change. With every word Tom spoke, she saw the pieces fall into alignment. She wasn't just a passive participant in her life anymore. Each decision she made shifted her closer to the woman she wanted to be: a fighter, an advocate for the truth. But the moment of clarity took a darker turn as the implications sank in. What if this plan unraveled? What if it jeopardized not only her safety but Mia's as well? The shadows of doubt crept back in, edging their way into her resolve. Tom noticed the shift in her demeanor, his brow furrowed with concern. "Ella, you don't have to do this all on your own. You're not alone in this fight." His words, meant to reassure, only intensified her fears. She had spent so long learning to handle everything alone that the thought of relying on others felt like a vulnerability she wasn't ready to accept. "I appreciate that, Tom. But this is something I have to see through. If I'm going to be the person leading this charge, I must own it completely." She felt the ground shift beneath her, but at the same time, she knew accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness, it was pragmatic strength. As they finalized their plans, her heart pounded with anticipation. They were setting the stage for a confrontation, one that could lead either to redemption or devastation. Ella's mind raced as she considered her next steps. The whisper of doubt asked if she was ready to face the danger lurking in the shadows, but it was the thought of the potential triumph that filled her with resolve. This was just the beginning, but the clock was ticking. They had work to do, and time was against them. What risks would they face as they ventured into a world where shadows loomed large? The next phase of her transformation was imminent, and the stakes had never been higher. The moment of truth was approaching, and the stakes were about to rise in ways she couldn't yet fathom. Would she confront the unseen enemies waiting for her, or would fear pull her back into the darkness? Ella stood before the table, the strategy they had begun to sketch out just moments ago echoing in her mind. Tom's presence was a grounding force, but the flurry of plans and potential outcomes made her pulse race. She was no longer merely contemplating the fallout, she was wading into the fray, prepared to face the storm. "First things first, we need to access the main server." Tom's tone snapped her back into focus. "We go in after hours, blend in, retrieve the data we need, and get out clean. No one can know we were there." Is it really that simple? The doubt seeped into her voice despite her best effort to hold it at bay. "Never simple, Ella. But we have the advantage of surprise." He smiled, though the corners of his mouth turned up with a hint of apprehension. "Just keep your head cool, and you'll do fine." Reassessing her own capabilities, Ella felt a flicker of determination surge within her. Instead of succumbing to the weight of her doubts, she began to map out her skills mentally: her organizational prowess, her ability to think on her feet, her growing aptitude for critical analysis. Each trait felt like armor against the uncertainty. "Okay, let's tighten the plan," she said, her voice firmer now. "What's the best route to the server room? We need an escape plan if things go sideways." Tom nodded, impressed with her sudden confidence. "That's the spirit. We'll need to keep our eyes peeled for security cameras and have a way to shut them down if necessary." I didn't factor in the technical aspects. Realization dawned on Ella. She had always been the one to take charge in any situation, she just had to embrace that role instead of fearing it. This was her moment to rise. "Let me handle the tech. I've been dabbling with software for months while working on back-end systems at the office. If we can find a way to loop the cameras, I can handle that." The admission surprised even her. She had always seen her technical skills as a means to an end, but here they became a lifeline. "Great." Tom clapped his hands, a spark of excitement sparking in his eyes. "And I'll handle the physical distractions. Just focus on what you know, okay?" The reality was dawning: she was no longer just a cog in the machine, she was a key player in this narrative. Little moments of personal growth began vibrating through her consciousness as an empowering force. Fear no longer held her, instead, it became fuel for action. Yet it didn't take long for the creeping anxiety to return. What if her skill wasn't enough? What if she made a misstep that jeopardized everything? What if her family's safety and Mia's became collateral damage in her quest for justice? Ella, Tom's voice sliced through her spiraling thoughts. What is going on in that head of yours? I need to think about Mia, she admitted, the weight of her sister's reliance on her pressing down like a physical burden. If I fail, she'll pay the price too. Then let that be your motivation. It can be your driving force. The encouraging smile on his face was a lifeline, but could she truly carry that weight? Steeling herself, she let those fears coalesce into something actionable rather than paralyzing. You're right. She took a deep breath, ready to reshape her narrative in a way that showcased her strengths as well as her imperatives. If we do this right, the truth can change everything for her. This is about more than me. In that moment of clarity, the urgency transformed into a clarified purpose. She was determined to carve out a safe route for both Mia and herself. It wasn't blind courage, but a profound understanding of what was truly at stake. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, the sound echoing in the fading light of the room. Time was against them, but her resolve crystallized in the face of that tension. As they prepared to leave, an unexpected thought network burst forth in her consciousness. What she was about to do could actually redefine not only her life but the world around her. They took a step towards the door, and with it, Ella felt the first genuine thrill of purpose coursing through her. What awaited them on the other side? The stakes were escalating, and she could almost taste how close she was to her own transformation. This was then a mere preamble to the battle ahead, one that would truly test everything she had come to discover about herself. Would she emerge as the architect of her fate, or would the enormity of the moment overwhelm her resolve? The thought loomed as they stepped into the night, a taut string ready to snap with the slightest pull. The night air was thick with tension as Ella and Tom slipped through the shadows, each step intensifying the bubbling anxiety beneath her surface. The low hum of city sounds faded into the background as they navigated the labyrinth of alleyways, their destination looming closer with each moment. Each corner they turned brought her closer to the reality of their mission, a reality that was both terrifying and electrifying. Ella's thoughts raced ahead, a mosaic of worries weaving through her mind. Could she even execute the plan? The doubt lingered like a specter, threatening to ensnare her resolve. But then she recalled Tom's words, the advantage of surprise was on their side. From mere thoughts, she shifted her focus to her capabilities. She had successfully implemented upgrades at her previous job. Manipulating the server system had always been a game of chess to her. What felt like a tenuous grasp on skills began to shift into certainty as she envisioned the operations. "Keep your eyes peeled," Tom whispered, his voice an urgent rustle in the quiet. They paused at the entrance of the building, which was bathed in the stark glow of fluorescent lights. Ella's heart beat furiously in her chest, a war drum urging her forward. This was it. She was stepping into a domain where her knowledge would either safeguard her or seal her fate. "Are you ready?" Tom asked, his eyes searching hers with a mix of anticipation and concern. Taking a deep breath, she nodded firmly. "Let us do this." As they slipped inside, Ella felt the weight of the moment and the world rest upon her shoulders. Each step into the building felt monumental, as if she was crossing a threshold into a new chapter of her life. This was not just about retrieving data, it was about proving to herself that she could rise above her doubts. They moved stealthily past the reception area, avoiding the wandering eyes of an unsuspecting security guard. Ella's breath quickened, not from fear but from the anticipation of the unknown that lay ahead. She grappled with feelings of self-doubt, but then focused on the task at hand. Thoughts of Mia bloomed in her mind, reminding her of the stakes involved. This was for her sister and not merely a test of her abilities, this was survival. As they reached a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," her palms grew clammy, but not out of fear. She was ready. She glanced back at Tom, who gave her a reassuring nod. With a quick shoulder check to ensure no one was watching, she pushed open the door. Inside, a grand corridor branched into multiple rooms, the flicker of computer screens casting a bluish glow. Ella felt the exhilaration wash over her as she took in the technology surrounding her. This was her domain. She moved toward a central terminal, her fingers brushing over the keyboard as if affirming her ownership of the space. The soft click of keys reminded her of the late nights spent honing her skills, turning theory into practicality. Ella. Tom's urgent tone broke through her reverie. We need to redirect the security feeds now. The shift in her focus jolted her back into the moment. Almost instinctively, she began accessing the system, her mind racing as she calculated each move. This wasn't just about getting information, each keystroke served as a declaration of her capability. The screens flickered, she could feel triumph simmering beneath her skin as she initiated the camera loop. A moment later, Tom whispered, "We're clear for now." "Nice work." But before she could revel in the victory, a sharp noise echoed in the corridor. Her pulse quickened. The tension snapped back. Was their moment of triumph about to shatter? "Ella, we might be out of time," Tom said, urgency curling in his voice. She glanced at the terminal, her resolve instantly reshaping itself. This was it. This was where she would confront her fears head-on, where she would redefine her path, not just for Mia, but for herself. As anxiety mixed with adrenaline, she whispered back, "We finish what we started." But just outside, the muffled sounds of approaching steps grew louder, threatening to engulf them in a moment of reckoning. Was she truly prepared for what lay ahead, for the confrontation that awaited? The question hung in the air, rich with opportunity and fraught with danger, as the tension thickened around them, threatening to snap like the taut string of fate they were dangling from. Ella felt her breath hitch as the footsteps echoed closer. An electric charge pulsed through her body, propelling her to act rather than retreat. Could she truly harness the skills she had cultivated over years of curiosity and practice? This was no longer just a mission, it was her proving ground. With determination igniting within her, she plunged back into the terminal, her mind racing through potential strategies. The interface was rich with layers of complexity, yet familiarity unfolded like a roadmap. It was like piecing together an intricate puzzle she had seen time and again. She began scanning lines of code, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she initiated a backup copy of the files they needed. The thrill of seizing control surged through her. Yet awareness of time was creeping in as those footsteps grew more pronounced. "Ella, hurry." Tom's voice sounded more urgent now, a reminder that while she was in the flow, they were still caught in a precarious situation. A decision loomed large. She had to choose between the data they needed crucial for Mia's safety and the risk of being discovered by whoever was now patrolling that corridor. The ethical implications washed over her, steering her to consider not just the mission's success, but also the potential repercussions of their actions. What if things went awry? "Tom," she paused, her heart racing, "this isn't just about getting in and out anymore. It's about ensuring security." Her internal compass was shifting as motivations transformed. She understood that her skills could protect, not just act. "Got it," Tom replied, glancing anxiously toward the door. "But we need to balance valor with caution." With a renewed focus, she pirouetted back to the terminal. The screen lit up with fuzzy images from the security camera feeds, a visual representation of their time running out, and Ella's heart sank at the realization. She had more to show for her capabilities than mere technical skills. She was a protector, a strategist. Ella generated a plan to not only retrieve the files but also secure their exit. She initiated an end script that would mask their activity, erasing their digital footprint. Each keystroke became a declaration of her growth, a statement that hinted at her true capabilities. Almost there, she muttered under her breath, deftly executing commands with a flourish that was steadily transforming anxiety into confidence. She worked faster, knowing they were a heartbeat away from danger. Suddenly, the muffled footsteps stopped, and a voice hissed from just outside the door, "Did you hear that?" Her pulse raced. Ella's body felt charged with adrenaline, each nerve ending firing with intensity as the reality of peril settled. This confrontation was not just external but surging from within her. She faced a threshold beyond her expectations, not only performing under pressure but also resisting the pull of fear that had often held her back. The growth was palpable, she was evolving. "What do we do?" Tom whispered, his voice shaky but firm. "Focus." "We hold our ground," she responded, steeling her resolve as she prepared for whatever might come next. This wasn't just about a mission, it was an awakening. The steps they took tonight were leading her away from self-doubt and toward a clarity she had long sought. As she initiated a final command, a rush of breath escaped her. They would leave this corridor behind, but she sensed that this experience would follow her far beyond these walls. A moment of truth had arrived, but its ultimate manifestation was still cloaked in the mystery ahead. Just then, the door swung open, the dim light spilling from the corridor, revealing two stern faces peering into the room. The reckoning had come. She was cornered, and every choice she had made until now was leading to this pivotal moment. With a stillness that betrayed the storm of her thoughts, she prepared to confront the unknown, ready to reveal the depths of her transformation. The new chapter of her life was about to be written, and this confrontation would soon define her future. Would she embrace the shadows and emerge transformed? Ella stood frozen, the chaos around her sharp yet strangely lucid. The urgent demands of the situation coalesced into the only thing that mattered. She needed a plan. Tom's anxious glances only deepened her resolve. With those figures looming in the doorway, every second counted. "Stay behind me," she whispered, instinctively shifting herself for the impending encounter. The footsteps had stopped, and a silence hung heavy, punctuated only by the dull hum of computers. She felt the tension coil in her stomach, yet the fear morphed into something more profound, an insistent drive that demanded she step outside the persona she had long worn. The looming figures stepped closer, eyes scanning the room, and it struck her, she possessed tools beyond mere technical prowess. Her years of practice had cultivated an ability to read situations, to analyze the nuances of body language and intent. Now was the moment to put that into action. "Focus, remember what we discussed about threats," she silently reminded herself. Watching their movements, she grasped that confidence was drawn not from the absence of fear but from the deliberate choice to push through it. She took a breath, eyes narrowing. "We can control this." "Who's in there?" One of the guards called, projecting authority that she could feel reverberate against the walls. The urgency squared her shoulders, thrusting her forward. "Just a maintenance issue," she called back, masking her voice with an attempt at casual reassurance that belied the storm within. The guard's response was swift, they weren't convinced. The pressure mounted, and Ella could feel the doors of opportunity beginning to close. "What's the plan?" Tom's voice barely masked the anxiety spilling over. But his question allowed her to strategize. Instead of fleeing or falling into the depths of uncertainty, she had to think. The room, the equipment, it was familiar territory, tools she had long mastered. "Tom, grab an external drive," she commanded, selecting the most convincing course of action. "We have to make it look like we're actually working here." As Tom complied, Ella recalibrated her thoughts, a blend of inventive and defensive strategies emerging. She focused on the terminal, typing furiously, pretending to clear system errors while ensuring the backup process continued discreetly. The guards were not just a physical threat, they represented the obstacles that had plagued her for years. Doubt, fear of failure, the apprehension of being unworthy. This was her moment to rise above all that. "Why don't you guys check the other rooms?" she suggested, injecting her voice with authority. "This won't take long. Just routine checks." Her heart raced as the guards exchanged glances. If they sensed a lie, they would pounce. If she could maintain control, she just might buy them time. "All right, but we're not going far," one replied reluctantly, glancing back at his partner. The door remained ajar, but they moved slightly away, refocusing their gaze on the hallway. Ella clenched her jaw, adrenaline coursing through her like a wildfire, igniting everything she had buried within. The initial fear had transformed into purpose, this was no longer just an extraction, it was a test of her newfound capabilities, her evolution from passive participant to active agent. Almost there, she muttered as she adjusted the final parameters, ensuring their digital presence would vanish the moment they took the necessary data. The thrill of manipulation pulsed through her veins. She could bend reality with a string of commands. Suddenly, a piercing alarm drew them from their task. The guards snapped their heads back toward her, the mask of authority cracking. "What did you do?" Ella's heart sank, but an exhilarating clarity flooded her. The confrontation wasn't just with them but with her own internal narrative. This was her confrontation with fear, with self-doubt. "I did what I had to," she shouted back, claiming the moment. As chaos broke loose, Ella felt her path emerge from the shadows. The escape was no longer just about fleeing, it was about claiming her identity, her worth. The door was wide open now, right into an unknown future. Was this her transformation? Would she step through, and if so, what awaited on the other side? The thick fog of ambiguity loomed, enticing yet terrifying, as she prepared to step fearlessly into the unknown. The blaring alarm reverberated through the room, shattering the fragile veil of composure Ella had woven for herself. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to abandon the plan for the safety of retreat. Yet, rooted in her place, she felt the intoxicating thrill of purpose ignite a fire inside her, a desire not just to survive but to seize this chaotic opportunity. "Tom, we need to move, now," she commanded, her voice steady over the clamor. The urgency pulled at Tom's arm, and together they darted towards the exit. The uncertainty of their path felt charged, electric, with each heartbeat a reminder of the stakes. In the narrow hallway, shadows flickered, and every corner they turned seemed like a ghost waiting to pounce. Ella could sense her heart pounding against her ribs, an incessant tattoo of fear and exhilaration. She was acutely aware of the looming figures behind her, the guards, the embodiment of her past limitations. And yet, at this moment, those figures transformed into something else entirely. They became the very catalyst for her evolution. "Where are we headed?" Tom's breathless inquiry hung in the air, tinged with a mix of hope and trepidation. "I know where the backup servers are located. If we can reach them, we can erase everything that's been stolen." The clarity of her thought sustained a burgeoning confidence. She had veered beyond the constraints of expectation, into a space where her knowledge and experience became her shelter. Tom faltered at her words, uncertainty painted across his face. "Are you sure we can do this? They have security cameras and all the staff are probably alerted by now." "Fear has always been my prison, Tom," Ella replied firmly. "But today is different. I can use this." She gestured to the screens lining the hall, a quiet reminder of her years behind the computer. "I've bypassed higher security before, I can do it again." They pressed forward, each step a testament to her shifting fortitude, each whispered conversation a silent pact against doubt. Ella's past experiences filled her with strategy. She recalled the tutorials, the late-night coding sessions, and the countless simulations she had run. This wasn't just a test of escape, it was an opportunity to confront the person she had strived to become. With the backup room within sight, Ella reached out to touch the handle. A brief moment of hesitation fluttered through her chest. This was more than a physical door, it was the barrier between who she had been and who she could be. Taking a deep breath, she grasped the handle, her resolve solidifying. The moment she stepped inside, a rush of familiarity washed over her. The dimly lit room, filled with blinking servers and digital readouts, felt less intimidating and more like home, a sanctuary from the chaos outside. Ella immediately scanned the console, fingers flying over the keyboard, pulling up security feeds, her mind racing to formulate a plan. "This will work, we just need a few minutes," she told Tom, though her own doubt flared momentarily. Each keystroke was deliberate, a reminder of her skills. She had spent years honing her abilities, now was the time to realize their full potential. Except the moments dragged, and the echo of frantic footsteps filled her ears. Time slipped like sand through her fingers, and panic began to creep back. Why had she thought she could do this? Why had she ventured into the chaos? But then she remembered their voices, the tension of the guards, the sense of power she had wielded moments before. Ella! Tom's warning pulled her from the reverie. The door burst open, and the guards flooded in, their eyes wide with authority. In a split second, Ella was overtaken by an urge to retreat, but instead she stood her ground. This wasn't just an external conflict, this was the ultimate confrontation with herself. "Step away from the computer," a guard demanded, stepping forward, but Ella squared her shoulders, embracing the fear and fortifying her will. For the first time, she realized that she might possess the upper hand. The knowledge she had thought irrelevant transformed into her armor. A sudden clarity struck her: she needed to take action, to channel her fear, not flee from it. So, she faced them, unyieldingly. "You want the information? Come and get it," she declared, her voice steady, igniting the fire of rebellion within her. In these moments, she would either forge ahead into her new self-definition or be consumed by the past she fought to escape. The choice hung in the air, palpable and tense. And with that, the moment of truth had arrived. What she would do next would change everything. Would she break, or would she find the strength to soar? Ella stood firm, her pulse racing but her resolve even more so. The moment pressed upon her, the air thick with the tension of confrontation. The guards exchanged glances, their arrogance faltering in the presence of her unexpected defiance. In this instant, she understood the power she held not just as a code-savvy employee, but as a woman who had begun to reclaim her narrative. "Stand down," the lead guard ordered, stepping closer, but Ella held her ground, the confidence coursing through her suffocating the doubt that had once bound her. This wasn't merely about the documents or exposing corruption anymore, it was about recognizing her value and redefining her existence. She refused to allow fear to cage her again. "What's on those servers could change lives," she replied, her voice trembling with a potent mix of fear and determination. "And if you think I'll back down now, you don't understand who you're dealing with." Tom's eyes widened in shock, but admiration flickered within them as he recognized the fierce spirit igniting in her. Here was Ella not merely a waitress struggling to make ends meet but a crusader, refusing to be silenced any longer. The journey had reshaped her in ways she hadn't fully grasped until now. With renewed focus, she turned back to the console, fingers dancing over the keys as she prepared to initiate a backup of crucial files and an ultimate wipe of the servers before they could intervene. Every click resonated with a shout against the looming shadows of power that had overshadowed her life far too long. "Don't do anything stupid," the guard warned, but Ella had already crossed the elusive threshold separating fear from courage. "Stupid would be to ignore my power," she countered, a spark igniting within her. "How about I show you what empowerment truly feels like?" With the backup finally in progress, she briefly glanced at Tom. His eyes were ablaze with support, and that spark reminded her why she took this risk: for Mia, for her father, for every soul crushed by the systems of greed she was now poised to dismantle. The lead guard took a step closer, attempting to flank her position, but Ella sensed the allocation of power subtly shift. Every heartbeat fortified her understanding that this was not merely a confrontation, it was a metamorphosis. "I know this is risky," Tom murmured, tension coating his voice, "but you're doing it, Ella. You've changed." The weight of his words resonated with her. The vulnerable girl who had once been paralyzed by uncertainty had transformed into a fierce protector, a woman claiming her rightful power, refusing to take a back seat in her own life. With the upload almost completed, just as the guards ready to lunge, she turned to the machine one last time, heart thudding. "And if you think arresting me will solve anything, think again. My name will be known, and what you stand for will crumble before you." The lead guard's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty passing over him as if questioning whether they could truly intimidate her. With every last ounce of determination, she pressed enter, initiating a complete wipe of critical evidence of their wrongdoing while retaining the vital files that would expose the fraud that had long been hidden. "Let us go. Now!" she shouted, grabbing Tom's arm, propelling him toward the exit. Together, they bolted into the hallway as alarms blared, the sounds enveloping them in a chaotic symphony of triumph. And then, as they raced through the shadows, with the weight of uncertainty still lingering, an exhilarating clarity anchored her. They escaped into the night, breathing in the crisp air, the adrenaline surging through them carrying an electric promise of liberation. Days turned into weeks as the implications of their actions unraveled. Reports began surfacing, and with each revelation, Ella watched as the facade surrounding her workplace crumbled, exposing corruption that had thrived in the dark. The world was taking notice not only of the case they had built but of Ella's name being associated with truth-telling. Media outlets began to spotlight whistleblowers, and Ella, for the first time, felt a swell of pride in her contribution to something meaningful. No longer bound by fear, she had firmly stepped into her role as an advocate for justice. Months later, she found herself in a boardroom meeting, a stark contrast from her life as a waitress discussing regulatory reforms that would ensure the safety and integrity of countless employees, all topics she was incredibly passionate about. Her once muted voice had transformed into a beacon of hope for those who felt powerless. She looked around, met eyes brimming with respect and acknowledgement, and for the first time, she felt a solid confidence settle within her. This was no longer just about survival. This was about thriving. As the meeting concluded, Ella emerged into the sunlight, her heart swelling with pride. In that moment, she knew she had conquered her fears. The trajectory of her life had changed irrevocably, and she stood tall, fully aware of her competence and newly found purpose. Ella Thompson was no mere victim of circumstance, she was a changemaker, a warrior for the truth with the courage to claim her achievements and help others find their voices too. And as she walked down the street, she felt a deep satisfaction wash over her, for she had not only transformed her life by accident, but she had become the architect of her own destiny. Now is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these powerful stories reach those who need them. Comment with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your insights are invaluable. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the inspiration.